Well, joining us now in the studio from the Audit Conference currently taking place is Jacques van Wyk. He's a corporate forensic partner at Nkonki. Hi Jacques, you've got this big Nkonki conference on. I think it's had several years of record, this very valuable conference. What are the trends that are emerging in fraud? One thinks certainly of all the technology that's available, you've got to be really up to date.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. This is the fourth year that the conference for audit committees are running. And international research and surveys have shown that corruption and bribery is the fastest growing economic crime in South Africa. And there are two very specific trends that we're seeing in South Africa. One is that the level within organizations that are involved in these economic crimes are increasing. So we have senior people in organizations that get involved. And secondly is that cybercrime is having a much bigger impact on economic crime, because it's more organized and are now a business versus an opportunity attack of disabling websites. So those two are very important to note.
What always interests me is that there's some very clever people doing this, but I suppose the criminals are clever as well. So you're wanting a foolproof way to get ahead of the criminals, but that doesn't appear to happen. You've got to keep coming up with new ways.
Absolutely. Crime is a business. You know, as we run businesses, we report on shareholding and value. It's a business for them. And it's a never-ending cycle. So policies, procedures, controls must be continually updated, because you have IT coming into the mix. Your internal audit, for instance, cannot be a standalone environment. It needs to work with IT to fight that. Just to give a simple example, when the color printer was introduced, people would forge very crudely. Now, people, instead of forging a degree, will buy a legitimate degree from a university where it's logged on the system as a degree. So you cannot go face value anymore, because the IT environment has enabled the criminals to be organized and to be appearing to be legitimate. So that really pushes the bar for us as forensic investigators to be a lot more holistic in our approach in investigating this and fighting this, in order for the companies to stay at least, if not ahead, to at least stay on par with what's out there happening. And you have a lag of legislation, so sometimes the criminals are 5 steps ahead, and we need to play catch up the whole time.
What about the costs of doing this? And I would think sometimes the chief financial officer says, hey, you guys are taking more resources here, but you need them.
It's absolutely, you're working with specialists. The teams have evolved from just being auditors. Now you have auditors, accountants, investigators, very high-level law specialists, IT specialists, data analyst specialists. So the cost is huge. But on the other side, if you are not proactive, the reputational risk of not protecting your client information, being involved in some form of scandal, and so there's a huge cost to the company. But all it's doing is it's pushing up the cost of doing business for organizations.
What about government and private sector? One senses and one has heard that the government-private audit capacity in government departments has been wanting. Is that still the case?
I think the Auditor General and his office are making great effort with National Treasury to capacitate, to create the skill sets within government. And
because there's a lot of fraud between the private sector. Of course, it takes two sides.
It takes two sides. You know, you must be willing parties. You must be willing parties. So it is a never-ending cycle, and it is not just one sector. It's easy. I think government is always in the news. It's very prevalent. So we perceive that government is the problem. It's not. Like you correctly pointed out, I must be there, you must be there, and we must be willing. There must be a meeting of minds to act and cause financial harm. So,
final point there, Jacques. A lot of noise going around Pravin Gordhan and local government, and trying to get he said he wants a certain target of clean audits, which hasn't happened for most municipalities. The trouble is, it's necessary to have a clean audit, but it's by no means sufficient. A clean audit, an unqualified audit, only means that. It doesn't mean you're delivering.
An audit, you're correct in that sense, is an audit looks at a limited area. And you can go through documents, present it to you, the sample you take, and present a clean audit, and there might be a major weakness in controls, might be a major fraud, so it just says that what the auditor has inspected and looked at, in his or her opinion, it's a fair representation.
Which is not quite the same thing. That's Jacques van Wyk, corporate forensic partner at Nkonki.